Good afternoon, and welcome to this afternoon's public hearing. This hearing will include Columbus City Council's Health and Human Services Committee. Specifically, we will be discussing the Local Food Action Plan. I'm Councilmember Priscilla Tyson, President Pro Tem of Columbus City Council and Chair of the Health and Human Services Committee. And I know my council colleague will be coming in shortly. Councilmember Elizabeth Brown will be here in a few minutes, so we will await her. Before we begin, please be aware that this hearing is being recorded for rebroadcast on CTV, the Columbus Government Television Channel 3. The rebroadcast channel is available at www.columbus.gov. I want to thank Primary One Health, especially President and CEO Charlita Tavares, for allowing us to utilize this location. It is important for us to hold this hearing in the community. The Local Food Action Plan has been driven by community involvement. In addition, this is really an ideal location because we know food can enhance the quality of one's life. And so we know we have a wonderful garden in the back. The Wheatland Farms is here, so this was really a great place to be able to think about having the food plan and being in a place where people come to get their primary care. So this food plan is really important. I just have to say, I am so excited. I am so excited. This has taken 2 years, and we are just ready to move this plan along. We developed this plan because we believe that everyone should have access to healthy, affordable, local food. A review of the plan's executive summary expresses the following. 1 in 5 children in our community are food insecure and are more likely to experience chronic disease. Nearly a quarter of our residents have had to travel 2 to 2.5 times further than the average family to receive a full-service grocery store, contrasted with reaching a fast food restaurant, which is at a rate that is higher than 40% of some of our neighborhoods. 275,641 Franklin County residents, or 23.69%, have limited access to a grocery store. 72,900 of these residents have been identified as low-income residents. 60% of adults in Franklin County are overweight or obese. While we know that this is significant and the impact of fruit and vegetables on public health, it is found that the majority of our residents are not getting the recommended servings that they need. So the legislative process says that this data that a number of our residents are dealing with obesity, diet-related diseases, food insecurity, and access to local food. And that is why I partnered with Commissioner John O'Grady in 2014 to develop a comprehensive food plan, which has been fully supported by the members of Columbus City Council and the Franklin County Commissioners. This support is evidenced by the passage of resolutions by both legislative bodies. On Monday, November the 24th of 2014, Columbus City Council voted to adopt a resolution number 0205X-2014, recognizing the partnership between the City of Columbus and the Franklin County in developing the Food Action Plan. The County Commissioners also passed a similar resolution in November 2014 as well. Columbus City Council also passed a second piece of legislation on November the 24th. Ordinance number 2462-2014 provided $138,170 to support a staff position at Columbus Public Health for someone specifically dedicated to working on the food plan. A portion of those funds were also used to contract with Local Matters for this plan. In May of this year, Columbus City Council also passed an ordinance extending the contract with Local Matters by another $27,500. So the total amount for Local Matters is $115,670. As we developed this plan, we paid special attention to focusing on a number of key areas impacting food in our community. This plan examines our entire food system, including consumers, producers, processors, distributors, commercial, and institutional buyers, as well as waste recovery. The goals of this plan include enhancing the coordination and communication among existing food resources and agencies, improving access and education regarding healthy, affordable food, increasing the role of food as it relates to economic development, and identifying waste related to prevent waste-related material. I believe that this community plan is a community-driven process used to develop this plan will result in innovative solutions to improve the quality of our local food system, our city's economy, and the overall health of our residents. I know that today's presenters will discuss the community engagement process. However, I want to highlight it as well. Resident feedback and transparency have been essential to developing the local food action plan. Local Matters held meetings in 7 neighborhoods: Linden, Wyland Park, Near South, Near East, Clintonville, Northland, and West Side to look at the goals that could be tailored to specific communities. This was an effort to improve access to healthy foods as well as to educate our community. In addition, a working committee of 24 community partners, and I'm going to say thank you a number of times to those partners because I know it took time away from their families to work on this plan. These 24 partners had expertise in varying sectors of the food system and was engaged to help to guide this work as well. Also, public comments were also solicited during the entire process. This plan has also given consideration to regional, state, and national best practices. It looked at plans from a number of similar-sized cities, from places like Seattle. New York isn't similar, but we looked at New York City, Santa Fe, New Mexico. And this afternoon is a continuation of the public dialogue that we started. As I introduce the members of the Local Food Action Plan project team who will be presenting today, I also want to thank each of them and everyone who has greatly benefited from a thoughtful, who've been a part of this process. The Local Food Action Plan has benefited greatly from the thoughtful, comprehensive work of these individuals. The contributors appropriately set high goals as well as established the roadmap for achieving success. With that, again, I want to mention my colleague was going to be joining us, and Councilmember Elizabeth Brown is now here. We're so happy she's here. And so now I'm going to turn over the rest of this hearing to the person that we're so excited from the City of Columbus who's helped lead this process. I'm going to introduce Cheryl Graffinino of Columbus Public Health, and then Matt Brown will be speaking, and then Michelle Moskowitz Brown of Local Matters. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. It's great to see so many faces that I recognize from our process, both in the planning process and in the public feedback session. So thank you so much for taking time to join us today. I'm going to take a few minutes to provide kind of a brief overview of some of the statistics that Council President Pro Tem Tyson shared with you to kind of help us set the stage for the rest of the conversation that we're going to have this afternoon. So if I could have the next slide, please. So the Local Food Action Plan, as we look at the system around our city, we know that there's been a tremendous amount of work around the local food system, some of it in the public sector, some of it in the private sector, some of it in the nonprofit sector. But from the public sector, Columbus City Council and Franklin County Board of Commissioners have a long history of strong support for local food initiatives. There has been funding that's supported community gardens through grants, food business incubation programs like those at ECDI, and food access programs like the Healthy Food processes at United Way of Central Ohio in the Fresh Foods Here program. And so we know that they have a strong history of supporting those initiatives, but there was no plan. There was no organized effort to say, how are we going to do this and move this in the right direction? And that was the purpose of bringing forward this local food action plan. Next slide. And so, again, we thank our legislative sponsors. Without the support of Councilmember President Pro Tem Tyson and Franklin County Board of Commissioners President John O'Grady, we would not have had the support that we needed at the level that we needed to make this process come to fruition. So thank you for your support. Next slide, please. And so again, in November 2014, we launched this process to build a strong, sustainable local food system, increasing citizen access to healthy, affordable food, and advocating for neighboring cities, counties, towns, and townships to support a strong local food system. Again, why is local food action plan important? The healthy food is essential to our community. As Council President Pro Tem Tyson mentioned, 60% of adults in Franklin County are overweight or obese. There's a number of factors in that, but of course, access to healthy food is important. Healthy food is also important because less than 25% of adults in Franklin County report consuming fruit and vegetables the recommended 5 or more times a day. So we're not getting the amount of fruits and vegetables that we need, and there are a variety of reasons, but certainly access contributes to that. And again, we have a quarter of our residents who have to travel 2.5 times further to reach a full-service grocery store than they do to reach a fast food restaurant. This rate is as high as 40% in some of our neighborhoods, and those are the same neighborhoods where we see some of the highest rates of diabetes, heart disease, infant mortality, et cetera. And as Council President Pro Tem Tyson reported, 275,641 of our residents, almost a quarter of our residents, are defined by the USDA as having low access to grocery stores. So that means they don't have physical proximity that's easy to get to for a full-service grocery store. And then they also, 72,000, almost 73,000 of those residents don't have the financial resources to have access to food, even if they were closer to it. So both of these issues are of concern. As Council President Pro Tem mentioned, we have a project team that was led by the City of Columbus, Columbus Public Health, Franklin County Economic Development and Planning, and Local Matters. I am the lead person for this project at Columbus Public Health, Matthew Brown at Franklin County Economic Development and Planning, and Michelle Moskowitz-Brown at Local Matters. Although our team consisted of a number of very, very important people, including Noreen Warnock, Brian Estabrook, Autumn Trombetta, Barb Seckler, as well as my favorite person in this process, and that is Jonathan Lee, because everybody should have a planner to keep them on track in this type of work. So that's been a very, very important part of our process. And so I'd like now to give Matthew Brown the podium so that he can share with you a little bit about the planning process.
Thank you, Cheryl, and good afternoon, President Pro Tem Tyson and Councilmember Brown. And this has already been iterated a number of times, but it is very important for our community to have this local food action plan. Strengthening this local food system will have a positive impact on the community health, the economy, and the environment. A strong local food system can create jobs, and it can return vacant and underutilized properties in the community into assets. In addition, local food is essential to sustainability. This will help us provide for ourselves so that we don't have to rely on other regions to prepare our food. Next slide, please. As already mentioned, in November of 2014, City Council and Franklin County Board of Commissioners authorized this local food action plan project. And with that authorization, in December of 2014, the local food project team was formed to facilitate this planning project. And that food team consisted of staff from Columbus Public Health, Franklin County Economic Development and Planning Department, and Local Matters. This unique partnership ensured that economic development, health, equity, cultural competency, and social justice were intentionally considered in all project phases. And I would like to recognize and thank Dr. Long, Director Schimmer, and Michelle Moskowitz-Brown for the support and guidance that they've provided to the local food project team throughout this project. Next slide. So today I'm going to describe for you the planning process that we followed for this local food action plan. This process was designed with 3 main points, and those were to improve access to healthy, affordable food, healthy food, affordable food, and local food in areas of our community that have limited access to such food. It was also designed to create linkages between consumers and producers as a long-term economic development and public health strategy, and to ensure that locally and sustainably grown food is prioritized and made available to all residents of our community. In addition to the bullets listed here, the process was also designed to address food-related waste and ways that we can avoid such waste. Next slide, please. So this planning process was divided into 3 phases, and those were the current conditions envisioning phase, the program and policy recommendations phase, and then a draft plan writing phase. And as already mentioned, we solicited public feedback throughout each of these phases. There were materials produced during each of these phases, and that material was sent out to the community for their review and input. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to dive a little deeper into each of these phases, but I first want to talk about the Local Food Action Plan Working Committee. This working committee was made up of 24 members of our community, representing a broad spectrum of food system stakeholders. Many of those working committee members are in the audience today, and I thank you for that, and thank you for your efforts throughout this process. And these members were selected to ensure a balanced mix of food sector representation. This group met 5 times during this planning process to review products that were produced during this process and to provide direction and expert feedback to the project team as we move through the process. Next slide, please. So this first phase was the current conditions envisioning phase, and the purpose of this phase was to gain an understanding of our current assets and needs in the community and to understand the community's vision for the food system. This was accomplished through extensive public engagement with interviews and surveys of all food system sectors and by holding food planning meetings in 7 neighborhoods, which Michelle Moskowitz-Brown will describe in more detail later in the presentation. We also accomplished this research through looking at published data through the U.S. Census, the USDA Agricultural Census, and the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Based on that research and the input that we received, a draft current conditions and vision report was developed and sent out for review by the working committee and for the public. Next phase. Slide, please. Through this process, a very important part of this process of the current conditions and visioning phase was the development of a vision for the food system. And this vision emerged from the input we received from the working committee and from the public. And that vision is a fair and sustainable food system that benefits our economy, our environment, and all people. And this is very critical because this vision is what guided the work of the project from this point forward throughout the rest of the project. Next slide. So the second phase was the program policy recommendations phase. And in this phase, we identified actions that had the greatest potential for a positive impact within the community. These actions will help us move from our current conditions, where we are today, to that desired vision, where we want to go in the future. The project team conducted a comprehensive review of local, regional, state, and national best practices by reviewing other local food action plans from communities throughout the nation. And we also reviewed planning and health-related publications for best practices. Through that review, we identified over 800 potential actions, which was a lot of work and a lot of things to work through. But the project team took that list of 800 actions and consolidated it to a list of about 146 actions by removing duplicative and non-specific actions from that list. And we then presented all 146 of those actions to the working committee to solicit their feedback on which actions we should research further for possible inclusion in this plan. And based on that input, we did draft a program and policy recommendations document that we again presented to the working committee for their input and sent out to the public for their review and input as well. And then the final phase of the project was drafting the plan. And we did this by taking those promising actions that were identified in the program and policy recommendations document, and we further developed, refined, and described those in the draft food action plan. This draft local food action plan was informed by our working committee, our legislative sponsors, and an extensive public feedback effort that Cheryl Graffinino will describe in greater detail here in a moment. This planning process led us to these 4 goal areas, and these probably look familiar to everyone, because these were also the 4 focus areas of this project. And as we worked through the project, it became clear that these should be our goals. And so those goals were to enhance coordination and communication among existing food resources and agencies, to improve access to and education about healthy food, affordable food, and local food, to increase the role of food in economic development, and to prevent food-related waste. And so with that, I would like to introduce Michelle Moskowitz-Brown, the Executive Director of Local Matters, to talk to you about, more specifically about how the actions in this draft plan were developed and what those actions are. Michelle?
I've never heard so many people pronounce my name correctly so much at once. Good afternoon, council members Tyson and Brown, and good afternoon to all of you. It is really exciting to be here, mostly because all of you have been a part of this process for the past couple of years, some ways, and for some people more than others, but great to have you all out here today. And there's not much left for me to cover, except I don't know if anybody's mentioned that the actual plan is about 89 pages, but we have this executive summary for you today, which is 4 pages. And really what I'll speak about is getting into the heart of the matter around community participation and the heart of the plan, which is the 27 actions that we whittled as a community down to as the most important to reach our goals. So we've alluded to this, but essentially, the plan is seeking to address the consequences of significant issues of inequality, poverty, underemployment, and unemployment in our community. These very major issues that, at the heart of it, when we say we want people to have healthy food, we know that if they had money to purchase healthy food, maybe this wouldn't be as big of an issue. So we're really trying to get at the heart of that matter when you think about what the food plan is accomplishing. We've talked about most of these stats. I would just say if you're thinking about less than 6% of our agricultural sales being fruits and vegetables, that means essentially 94% of it is commodity crops. So how do we increase the role of what we call specialty crops for farmers, fruits and vegetables in our local food system? And then I would just also point out the 13% of our landfill being related to food waste, and really the areas that we want to affect the most change is in prevention. Recycling takes a lot of resources, so how do we prevent that food from going to waste in the first place? We've talked about this, so I won't spend time on this slide so much in terms of those are the goals for the plan. But I will say that we ended up with, as we said, 27 actions, and those are across those 4 goal areas. The one action for goal A around increasing coordination really comes down to this city, county, local food team, and advisory group, and that's really going to be the heart of where the action on the plan is going to take place. I think that focus of just one goal in that area really helps us hone in on accomplishing the vision of our plan. And then an example, we have big goals in here around food purchasing. Action B, increasing food education and access. We have a food supply connector to expand market opportunities. And in food waste prevention, just another example of recommending changes to policy, zoning, and health code to support restaurants and businesses' ability to promote waste diversion. So before this process started, of course, food work and food planning has gone on in our community for many years preceding this plan, 15 years, 20 years back, and really we know this movement is growing over time. And Local Matters was having conversations in specific communities around areas of access and education, and through this process we were able to expand that to 7 neighborhoods that we've identified earlier today, and really have 3 conversations at a minimum in each of those neighborhoods, and really an ongoing basis going back to each neighborhood. And even though the food plan represents, community-wide solutions, there are very specific neighborhood-based solutions that are still continuing to be addressed, and will also be addressed largely by the plan as well. So it's a great coming together of that very local solution, whether it's growing more food. New Americans want to grow more food in Northland, or on the west side, we need a grocery store. Really finding those solutions while keeping a wider lens on also the overall community needs. So those are the neighborhoods. There are plans for each of those neighborhoods available on the website, so columbus.gov/LFAP, and you can see where the priority areas were. And they really did vary in each community. And so I think that the ability to really focus in on what each community needed is really key to this plan's success overall, and to the continuing work that we'll all continue to support. So the plan is a plan, right? It's great. We now have a roadmap. Again, just supporting all of the work that each of you are doing in your communities and across the city and county. And we also will be open to a lot of new opportunities that will arise, and kind of staying on top of progress that is being made in a variety of other areas. And, as we come back, as the city and county come back with reports, of course, there'll be adjustments, but it's just, know that there's flexibility, and also, these are actions that are firmly supported in our community. And when we achieve this plan, we will see increased access, we will see increased opportunity, we'll see economic development, community revitalization, and increased access to food for those most vulnerable in our communities. So really excited to present the executive summary today, the food plan soon, and looking forward to working with all of you as we move forward with these actions. Thank you. Now I'd like to bring back Shel Graffinino.
Thank you, Matt and Michelle. I appreciate the opportunity for you to hear a little bit in full color how we came to the point we're at today. And what I'd like to share with you now is a little opportunity to tell you where we're going. So now that we have this food plan together, what do we want it to do? And our goal with this plan is that we'll inform public policy. So as decisions are made, how do we make sure that the importance of food, local food, affordable food, healthy food, how do we make sure all of those pieces are considered as decisions are made? So this is one of those things that gives us an opportunity to really kind of define what our platform is and how to help guide those decisions. How can it help inspire program development? So again, as Michelle mentioned, the plan can be a tool that will help as community organizations are choosing to create new programs or develop things. They can look at the plan and say, this is a need that's been identified by a number of people in our community. This is a place for us to focus. It's also a tool that will help us foster community collaborations. As you look through the processes and through the plan that I'll share with you how you can find a copy of it here a little bit later today, you'll also see different groups that we know are working in this arena, and how can you connect with them. We hope that it will help serve as a guide for local funding strategies so that we can more effectively leverage the resources that exist in our community, and then provide a foundation for grant applications and other opportunities to bring more resources into our community as well. This is not a rigid set of rules. This is not code. This is not rules and regulations. This is a plan that helps us identify our common points where we can work together to put our oars in the water and all pull in the same direction. So it has a tremendous amount of opportunity for flexibility, but it has some guidance to help us all move together. Next slide, please. And so what was important through this process is starting from scratch with no plan in front of us is always a challenge. And so working with local matters work and the working committee and all of the processes that Matt identified, we finally came with a product that said, okay, these are the goals that we need to focus on. And how do we go out to the community and find out, one, did we make space in this plan to do the work that needs to happen? And two, are there any places that we can improve? And so we made it an effort over the month of August and September to begin to get out to residents and stakeholders. And so we had a very extended public comment period. And fortunately, during that time, we were able to engage 291 residents and stakeholders through that process. When you look at that, along with all of the public comment and all of the work that we engaged in the initial planning processes, there were over 1,300 residents and stakeholders who engaged in this conversation. So we were very pleased to have that type of a response to this work. And so how did we engage in the public feedback process? So this is focused on once we had that draft plan. Many of you were involved in these conversations, so you've seen it. We reached out and we used an online survey, and we participated in 11 public feedback sessions. We partnered with our health advisory committees throughout the city to conduct those. We were also invited to meetings like the Greater Columbus Growing Coalition's Executive Board. We were invited to some meetings on the west side as well. We also had extensive involvement from the Franklin County Local Food Council, professional organizations such as the Columbus Dietetic Association, and other community organizations helped us achieve this effort. So we really made an effort to get throughout the city and engage in a number of different ways. And as a result, we were able to track the zip codes of our participants in these 291 feedback responses. And you'll see as the colors get darker, we had more people from those zip codes. And so again, this was our partners at Franklin County Economic Development and Planning helped us with this. And you can see that not only did we do a good job of engaging people throughout the city and across the community, but we also got a very strong representation from some of our communities that, as I mentioned, may have some of the biggest challenges for access, and they may also be experiencing more health disparities in their community. So we did get a good cross-section of people. And so what was important for us as we went through this process, as I mentioned, one of the things that was very positive in my mind was that we left each meeting feeling pretty confident that we were making space for the work that needed to be done. But the common themes that came out of every one of our sessions that we engaged with in the community is the importance that health equity and making sure healthy food is accessible to every one of our residents all throughout the city was absolutely paramount to our community. That we did this in a way that was culturally competent, that we weren't simply choosing that we know the right things for you to eat, and we're going to come and tell you that, but that we're engaging with our communities, both on geographic areas in our city, as well as different ethnic backgrounds, age, mobility issues, all types of different factors that we have to be conscious of that as we move forward. It was also very, very important that we can coordinate with the emergency food system. The emergency food system in our community is a very, very large and very well coordinated system, but we need to coordinate better with that system. And even as they move forward in their efforts to continue to improve, we need to be part of that conversation, and we'll continue to do so. And then it was also very clear that our community wants to have a voice in this process. They want a very clear path in which they can engage in this process. And so we're hoping that as we move forward, that the things that we've identified will get us in that direction. And we also know that we need to adjust and keep these as our focus. And so as we move forward, Michelle mentioned that one of the primary actions that came out of Goal A, or Goal 1, is to establish a city and county joint local food team. So that we'll continue to have city and county staff who are focused on this issue as we move forward. We want to support a strong local food council, that food democracy piece that allows us to keep a very close conversation with our community so that we make sure as we move forward that our community is heavily engaged in keeping us true to our mission. And we want to be able to effectively engage and inform our decision makers who can help us make things happen in our communities. And so, as Michelle mentioned, that joint city-county local food team will have an advisory board that will help us prioritize and focus in our communities and also, again, hold us accountable to our mission. And we'll use that opportunity to help us leverage public and private resources to more effectively serve our community. We will keep our community informed through regular reports. coordinate funding efforts so that we're building synergy between both local and emergency food systems and trying to draw in more resources into our community, preventing redundancy so that we're, again, working to the best of our abilities, and expanding the reach of all of our local food system efforts throughout the community. And so, as I mentioned, we want to support a strong local food council, and as this is a public hearing, I wanted to take a moment to mention briefly that this is an area that we're committed to really connecting with our local food council, making sure that we are keeping that implementation line and that communication line connected, so that as people are moving forward in this and become more involved, we want to create a connection that allows that local food council to be that gateway into local food work for our communities, so that people know exactly where they can and should go to get connected. So that's one of our things that as we move forward that you'll see a lot of energy around that. And so, as I mentioned, we're the project team. Our contact information is here. It's also very easily accessible on our website, which is at this next page. And as of probably about 6 o'clock today, when the website publishes, the draft of the local food action plan will be on the website. So it will be, it was uploaded about an hour before we came here. And so as soon as that goes live, it will be there. So I would like to take a moment, and I have asked some of our working committee members to join us today to tell you a little bit about the process from their perspective. You've heard about it from the project team's perspective. And I've asked 5 of our partners to join us because they represent various parts of the food system and the sectors. Today you're going to hear from Amy Boddicker-Basks. You're going to hear from Ernest Perry, Sharisa Coleman Mohammed, Mike Hogan, and Ellen Moss Williams. So I'd like to invite Amy Boddicker-Basks to join me at the podium.
Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, Council President Tyson and Councilmember Brown, for having us here today. This is an exciting day. As Cheryl said, my name is Amy Boddicker-Baskus, and I'm really excited to see the room so full and to see us here at this place where we're presenting the final plan. It has been a great 2 years. I'm here representing the Franklin County Local Food Council, which was mentioned in the previous slide. I've been active on the council since its formation in 2011, and I served as its chair from 2013 to 2015. And it was in this role that I was invited to serve on the working committee for the local food action planning process. Our food council is a volunteer group of stakeholders representing various cross-sectors of interest in our local food system. We come from diverse neighborhoods, socioeconomic statuses, ages, perspectives, and interests. We're subject matter experts, concerned citizens who represent public and private groups, all situated under that big tent, that topic of food. We're growers, we're educators, kitchen managers, fundraisers, pantry directors, planners, policy experts, and eaters, all working together to champion for a healthy food system with recognition that our individual work is strengthened in the context of a better whole. And for those of you who have been or are on the Food Council, I'm grateful to see you here today. Our council, as I said, was formed in 2011, and our mission is to expand, strengthen, and maintain a resilient local food system in Central Ohio. And while our individual members represent a variety of programs addressing these issues, our council serves as that kind of umbrella whose purpose is to monitor the intersection of all of these activities, both public and private, to help determine where we have strengths and where we have opportunities. Initially, in the early years, we conducted a food policy audit to help us determine a baseline of where our food system activities intersect with government, both for the opportunity to strengthen those activities and to identify gaps. And we held a series of public listening sessions to help educate ourselves and members of the community on a variety of topics where our individual organizations worked overlapped, and to understand that intersection. So we had conversation on things like food hubs, on incentivizing healthy food access, school food, school gardens, food waste. And it was out of those listening sessions that the farmers market incentive program called Veggie Snaps emerged, and I currently serve as the program manager for Veggie Snaps, Like much of what we've talked about today, these kind of programs have economic development interests, healthy food access interests, and represent a variety of stakeholders. And I'm grateful for the planning process and the council for understanding that food intersects all those various sectors. Indeed, our Food Council aims to foster communication and civic action at the grassroots level. We provide a forum for people to shape from the bottom up the nature of a food system that can seem distant and bewildering, even as it affects so many aspects of our lives, from personal and public health, economic development, the environment, and social justice. And this is why the Franklin County Local Food Council is so enthusiastic about the Local Food Action Plan. From the very outset, I think this effort has recognized and embraced that big tent nature of the food system. And in the creation of a plan that both the city and the county work together to create with all the citizen engagement, that intentional engagement of hundreds of stakeholders and residents, we know that the resulting implementation and impact on our community will be stronger. And the Food Council looks forward to participating in and supporting the implementation of this plan. And we're grateful for all of you who were engaged at various stages of it to make it the best that it can be. We know it will be good as we continue to implement it together. And we encourage any of you who are interested in participating in the Food Council to consider joining us in that work. So thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Ernest Perry.
Good afternoon, Council President Pro Tem Tyson and Council Member Brown. My name is Ernest Perry. I am the CEO of Hands On Central Ohio, and our mission in this community is to align community resources and generate insights that strengthen Ohio. A lot of you may know us by our former name, FirstLink. One of the most important things that we do at Hands On is function as this community's emergency food clearinghouse. Each year we connect hundreds of thousands of individuals to nearly 100 emergency food pantries and meal sites and deliver north of 1 million meals a year. So it's a very important perspective that we thought we had to share in this process and really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it. As the clearinghouse, it's very important for us to ensure that emergency food access was a major part of the discussion that we had. Most of the people who we work with and serve every day are some of the neediest residents in this community. They live in some of the most food insecure neighborhoods and zip codes. And so ensuring that emergency food and the voices of residents who were struggling every day to just find a meal made it into this plan was very important. And as my team and I sat back and we reviewed the results of this plan, we were very confident that we see those voices represented. We thought that was a special part of this process. And we'd like to commend Council Member Tyson's leadership on making sure that we had a process that was open and inclusive and engaging. And the project team set a really high bar for what it looks like to do engagement. And I think it's been a unique experience for us being a part of that, and we've not seen this in all the tables that we've sat at, and are really looking forward to what has resulted, which is a really actionable, inclusive plan that includes emergency food access and the diverse needs of people in low and moderate income communities. And we think those are both the cornerstones of a comprehensive food plan, and we see that as a part of what's been produced here today. So we want to thank you for inviting us to participate and continue to be a partner with you in your leadership, and look forward to collaborating on the implementation. And now I will turn it over to Sharisa Coleman Muhammad.
Thank you. I have to write my information down because I'm a gardener. I'm not the world's best spokesperson, so I'll just read it. First, I'd like to thank God for being my guide and allowing me to go forward with his work. I would like to thank all City Council members, and in particular, Councilwoman Pro Tem Priscilla Tyson, as well as Cheryl Graffinino and Barb Seckler of the Columbus Health Department for their dedication to the City of Columbus and its residents to make sure that all its citizens have healthy food. Being on the Local Food Action Committee has opened my eyes to the harsh reality that food injustice is more than just a Linden area problem. It's more than an inner-city problem or a senior citizen problem or a struggling young family problem. It is a citywide problem. I believe it can be resolved with the proper attitude, funding, and willingness to understand what has happened in the United States and why we as concerned citizens have to do all we can to truly end hunger. How do we really end hunger without a good, workable plan? By having input from different people of different backgrounds and people who have the same goals, a plan was formed to ensure that all the citizens of Columbus are able to have access to good, healthy food. I believe the information gathered from the committee meeting of the Food Action Council is a step toward making the workable plan for Columbus to show other cities and states how to ensure that all its citizens have access to good, healthy, affordable food. When the meeting of the Local Food Action Council first started, he said it was 800. I thought it was 1,000 actions. Of course, that's an exaggeration. However, it was quite a few. With everyone's help, a foundation was laid to consolidate these actions into a workable plan. I hope that the council and all those involved will take a close look at what has been proposed so that the City of Columbus can be an example as to how to really end hunger, food poverty, and want in this country. The Linden Garden Association's members would like to thank the Local Food Action Committee for inviting us to take part in this study. Thank you. Now, I'd like to bring forward Mike Hogan of The Ohio State University.
I think she's a gardener and a speaker. I'm Mike Hogan, OSU Extension Educator for Agriculture and Natural Resources for Ohio State University Extension here in Franklin County. I want to begin by commending and thanking Council President Pro Tem Tyson, the entire council, Councilmember Brown, and also County Commissioner O'Grady and the entire Board of Commissioners, really for having the foresight to initiate this project and for your leadership around this whole issue of food security and food system development for our community. I had the opportunity to serve on the working committee for the past 2 years and a couple of months and a couple of days, and it was a very rewarding opportunity. I found the process to be incredibly focused and targeted, very strategic, and very inclusive, involving a very wide range of stakeholders in our community. I think because of the approach, the potential success for implementation of the recommendations and goals and action steps in the plan, and ultimately positively changing the food system in Central Ohio, has a great chance to succeed. And you can't say that for a lot of planning activities. I've had the opportunity to serve in the same capacity for other planning projects related to economic development, land use, and agricultural systems. And too often these plans end up on a shelf somewhere, and you're lucky if maybe 1 or 2% of the recommendations are fully implemented. And I think because of the leadership provided specifically by the project team of Cheryl, Matt, and Michelle, we really have the chance to have great success. And I would just urge City Council and the Board of Commissioners to continue to provide leadership and resources. The resources are the important part there, I think, for the implementation phase of this important project. I think the recommendations and the action plans contained in the plan will really help both the private sector and the public sector make the needed reforms and changes to make our food system here in Columbus and Franklin County and probably further out into Central Ohio more healthy, more resilient, more economical, and ultimately more profitable for our community and for our farmers and our food producers. Let me give you an example how one organization will use the action steps in the plan. Ohio State University has recently committed to sourcing 40% of all of its food purchases from local farmers and food producers. The institution spends about $39 million per year on food, so that's fairly economic commitment there. The commitment is to do that by 2025, which sounds like a long time away, but it obviously isn't. Now, for the institution, the boundaries of local are the boundaries of the state of Ohio, obviously, but President Drake has asked us to look at how we can source hyper-local, if you will, purchase from farmers and food producers here in Central Ohio, here in Columbus, and he's asked us to look at how we can get more food production in neighborhoods right around the university, neighborhoods like Wineland Park, Linden, Franklinton, and the Hilltop. So we'll be redoubling our efforts to work and train folks to be urban food producers and farmers. And the action steps in this local food action plan are really critical for us to achieving that success. We're also redeveloping a plan for Waterman Farm, which is a 261-acre farm on the western edge of campus. It will become a national center for food security and urban food system development. It will include an urban extension center where we take the research and turn it into educational programming for residents of Columbus and Franklin County and beyond, to show them how they can produce more food, whether it's just for their families or for its developing food-based businesses here in Central Ohio. And so, in summary, I would say that we have, in this community in Columbus and Franklin County, really an unparalleled opportunity to change our food system for the better. And I really believe that if we can implement this plan, and in the future, when other communities want to learn how to improve their food systems, they won't just look to Portland and to Austin and to Denver. They'll come here to Columbus and they'll ask us how we made the changes to improve our food system for all residents. And I really think the local food action plan will have been the impetus for those changes. So thanks again for the opportunity to speak, and I'm going to turn the podium over to Ellen Williams from the Godman Guild.
Do I need to introduce anybody? Because I didn't get the directions after this. I'm done. Okay, I'm the last one. Okay. Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm Ellen Moss Williams, President and CEO of the Godman Guild Association. And thank you very much, President Pro Tem Tyson and Councilmember Brown. And I also like to thank Commissioner O'Grady for really leading this important effort. And I got to thinking about it, how many people in this community really understand the importance of a local food system? I mean, it's easy to understand that people need to graduate from high school, or that adults need jobs, or that infants need to live beyond their 12th month. But most people go to Kroger or Giant Eagle, or, they just don't understand the importance of having a local food system. So the work that you are leading is really very, very important. And it's important to the Guild because we know that a lot of folks that have a hard time getting jobs have a hard time because of health-related issues. And a lot of those health-related issues are because of very poor eating habits, or a lack of access to good foods, as well as being physically active. And so one of our strategic initiatives is around making sure that people are very healthy and that they're well, and that they're able to get jobs. And so this is another reason why we are very supportive and have appreciated participating in this planning process, because we have to be able to provide pathways to not just entry-level jobs, but also middle skill level jobs for individuals that may have a very difficult time getting a job. So we are in the process through our affiliate, the Community Economic Development Corporation of Ohio, of hopefully making operational a food processing project next year. And so we're very, very excited about that and the part that it plays in filling gaps in this plan. And just to illustrate the importance of a local food plan and process and system, just a very short story. My very best friend, Connie, who lives in Maryland, almost 3 months ago became deathly ill. And they had a hard time figuring out what the problem was. And in the end, and this is a very rare an extreme case, but in the end, she was ill because she had consumed a smoothie that had strawberries from Egypt. And she developed hepatitis A. And even though that is an extreme case, it's really important to know where our food comes from and how it's being processed. And so this is a game changer for Central Ohio. The Guild has really appreciated participating, and thank you very much for including us. And Cheryl, thank you so much for being very patient with me and taking the time to talk to me after the meetings, because I just had a conflict, but I really, really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ellen, and I want to say thank you to all the speakers, especially the stakeholders that came down. I want to Amy, to Ernest, to Teresa, to Michael, and again to Ellen. Thank you for coming. Thank you, first of all, for serving on the committee, but thank you for also coming down and giving testimony about the plan and working on the plan. I don't know, Councilman Brown, do you have any questions you want to ask at this time? Any questions?
No, I just want to say thank you to your leadership. Thank you to you for your leadership, and I can take no credit for anything that's happened on this. I appreciate a couple people giving me thanks, but I'm really here to listen to the community. So thank you, Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. And so now what we'll do, first I want to say Dr. Long was in the room. Is she still here? Dr. Long, I want to say thank you for your leadership. And certainly we've heard what's going to happen in the plan, but before I say any more, we have some speakers who want to come up and talk about the plan. So now I'm going to open this to public comment. The first speaker will be, I think it's Glennon Sweeney. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name's Glennon. I'm a research associate at the Kirwan Institute. I lead the food justice work there. I also am on the Franklin County Local Food Council, and I'm also a PhD student at Ohio State in the City and Regional Planning Department. And I want to first just say thank you. I've been a lifelong resident of Columbus, and this is awesome. This is great for my city, and thank you to everyone who has been involved in the planning process, and particularly to you, Council President Pro Temp Tyson. I also just want to encourage those involved in the implementation to think critically about trends, poverty trends in Columbus. 40% of Columbus is suburban. That 40% also attends suburban school districts. And none of those suburban school district areas of Columbus were engaged directly during this process. And I know I've talked to all of the people involved in the planning process about the suburbs. I study the poverty in the suburbs, so I'm very interested in it. But I really want to encourage thought about immigrant populations, particularly in those common areas, in regards to B10, which is, thinking about those most impacted by health disparities. And I also really want to encourage, in the implementation process, thoughtfulness about including other jurisdictions, our suburbs that are within Franklin County, and in ways that make sense for them to participate in the plan, because it will make the plan stronger if they're involved also. And also to think about suburban school districts when thinking about expanding nutrition and food system education in the schools, because we have poverty growing in those districts. That's where poverty is growing fastest. It's in those common areas. So I just want to encourage thoughtfulness in the implementation around those issues and say thank you for an awesome job. You guys did a tremendous amount of really high quality work, and this is something that is going to change our city. So thank you. And I'm leaving now, and I apologize. I have to go to a speaking engagement. So thank you, Carol Smathers, for letting me skip you in line.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sweeney, for coming down and giving your testimony. Our next speaker will be Carol Smathers. Good evening.
Anything for you, Glennon? Council President Pro Tem Tyson and Councilmember Brown, I want to thank you for your leadership in this plan and for the opportunity to share a few thoughts this evening. My name is Carol Smathers. I am a Franklin County resident, and I'm an assistant professor at Ohio State University Extension. Since 2013, I've served as the leader of the statewide Farm to School program. Farm to School promotes the procurement, the serving, and the educating about local foods. And we know that research shows that students in schools that participate in farm to school activities like these consume more fruits and vegetables, have higher school meal participation rates, and have a greater willingness to try new foods both at school and at home. And this is just a few of the benefits of farm to school. I'm really excited about the development of local food action plans that support farm to school efforts. Ohio, as you know, is greatly blessed with a variety of local foods, foods that are grown, raised, and processed and are appropriate for the school markets. But because of the way that our food systems have developed in the recent decades, there are just a number of very real barriers to schools in purchasing and serving local foods, supply, distribution, processing, packaging, et cetera. So I think the goals and actions of the plan will specifically address a number of these barriers, and that successful implementation of the plan will allow schools to serve so much more local foods to our young residents. I'm really excited also to see that a big part of the plan is education. That is one of the 3 important pillars of Farm to School. Our local economy stands to really gain from new distribution channels and systems for connecting local products to our local school districts, both large and small. I have seen farm to school successes across our state, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what changes are going to come about right here in the city of Columbus and Franklin County to benefit our young residents. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down and testifying. Our next speaker will be, I think it's Harmony Cox. Is that right? Hello, Harmony. It's good to see you again.
Sorry, my handwriting's not the best. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Bring this down. Thank you. Okay. All right. Good afternoon. Thank you, Councilwoman Tyson, Councilwoman Brown. It's wonderful to be here and have the opportunity to address you all. My name is Harmony Cox. I manage the Fresh Foods Here program for the United Way of Central Ohio, and I've come to share some testimony and affirm our support for the local food action plan. So the program I manage, Fresh Foods Here, we're a healthy corner store initiative, and we work with small retailers in neighborhoods that lack grocery access. As we discussed earlier, retail access is a real problem in a lot of neighborhoods here in Columbus. A lot of people don't realize that retail access to food is a food security issue, but the fact is that over 2 million Ohioans lack regular access to a grocery store, and many of those Ohioans live right here in Columbus. A lack of grocery access means a lack of dietary choices, and there's a demonstrated negative effect on the health in our community because of that. And that's why Fresh Foods Here focuses on working with existing retail establishments in neighborhoods to encourage the growth of healthy retail, and also to increase healthy food access points for residents. Our mission is to help store owners stock, market, and sell healthy food while also providing nutrition education to community members. We work with 17 stores in neighborhoods across Columbus, including here in the Hilltop, and I am happy to share that our program works. Stores that work with Fresh Foods Here routinely increase the overall quantity and variety of healthy food that they make available to their customers. And in turn, their customers tell us that when they see the Fresh Foods Here logo, they know that they'll be able to enact healthy behaviors in their neighborhood. Those are all positive changes, and we're proud of that, but we also know that there's more that we can do. Our stores are stocking more healthy food, but we want them to begin to stock more local foods, and we want them to begin to emphasize affordability. That's going to require new sourcing and distribution solutions and new thinking and partnerships to support that work. We also know that the neighborhoods we work in need much more in the way of nutrition education and food access than we can offer from corner stores alone, again requiring new partnerships and new thinking. Fresh Foods Here is a small piece of a much larger food access puzzle that can only be solved by a collaborative effort. We need to find ways to ensure that healthy local foods are available everywhere people want to access them, be it at a soup kitchen, a supermarket, a farmer's market, or a corner store. We need to think about food access not just as a health concern, but as a community development tool, an opportunity to create jobs, strengthen our local economy, and make sure that access to food stays sustainable and affordable. We need to think critically about the role that food's going to play in our growing city, and we need to make sure that that role is a positive one. The Local Food Action Plan lays out achievable, high-potential objectives to fix current issues in our food system, and it also provides a roadmap to the future that emphasizes collaboration, shared resources, and results. It's time for Columbus to come together as a city and ensure every person has access to the food they need to be happy and healthy, regardless of neighborhood and social circumstance. That's the potential of our city, and that's the potential of the Local Food Action Plan, and that's why we're excited to support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harmony, and thank you for the work that you're doing in the communities. I know I've had the opportunity to come out with you and go to some of the local stores and just appreciate your advocacy and to helping the retailers to make sure that there's healthy foods in these communities which don't have the grocery stores. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Our next speaker is going to be Kate Hodges. Good evening, Kate.
Hi, everyone. For those of you who have not met, I'm Kate Hodges. I'm a local grower in the North Linden neighborhood and also market manager for the Clintonville Farmers Market Wednesday Market, which has ended at this point. So I'm here to speak in favor of the Local Food Action Plan, and I want to echo some statements made by others previous to me coming up here. So it sounds like we all agree that there remains great untapped potential for local food production to address access to healthy food here in Columbus. As a grower in North Linden, I'm heartened to see that the Local Food Action Plan includes several items that specifically suggest expanded opportunities for urban and suburban growing operations. Mike Hogan, I don't see him now, but he earlier mentioned that OSU's goal is to increase their hyper-local food sourcing. And I can tell you that as a grower, the opportunities for growers to support that goal are directly tied to policy changes. Those suggested by the Local Food Action Plan and those suggested or potentially suggested by the currently underway urban agriculture study that's a project of the city and MKSK. It's my hope that direct dialogue between the Local Food Action Plan leadership and local growers will remain a priority in the implementation process here. I unofficially, totally unofficially, but I think it's true, speak for many local growers when I say that we're interested. We're interested in engaging in initiatives that grant greater potential and greater ability for us to do what we love, which is producing wonderfully outrageous fresh foods for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, and we certainly want you to be able to grow those foods for our community, and certainly we'll be connecting you obviously to the Ohio State University, but also continue to work with us on this plan. Thank you. Gary Cox is our next presenter. Good evening.
Hey, good evening. How are you? Thanks, President Pro Tem Tyson and Councilmember Brown. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm a lifelong, actually almost a lifelong Columbus resident. I'm an attorney. I used to prosecute polluters for the state of Ohio at the Attorney General's office. I was an organic vegetable farmer for 2 years. I went into private practice for 4 years. And for the last 10 years, I've been representing farmers as the general counsel for a nonprofit organization called the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. And I have a sample pen if anybody wants to see it. It's legitimate. The Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund defended the rights of the farmer to sell directly their agricultural products to the consumer without any interference from government. So our guys, they were like raw milk farmers, they were egg farmers, beef, poultry, all this kind of stuff. They would sell food directly to the consumer, and they would not get a permit, they would not get a license, they would not adhere to sanitation standards or labeling standards or packaging standards or any of this kind of stuff, because they felt it was a direct transaction between the producer and the consumer. It was private. It therefore did not involve the government's health, safety, and welfare. So I'm actually testifying today in support of the local action plan. And I think that's got a lot of great components to it. It's very ambitious. It's totally thorough. It's looked at, the whole concept of food from the local level all the way to the producer level, to the consumer level. It talks about access. It talks about economics and preventing waste. The things that I like about it are it starts to promote farmers markets, which in Ohio you have to understand the law as it pertains to farmers markets, and you can see how promoting farmers markets is a good idea. I like how it talks about mobile retail operations, which I think are like food trucks basically, but it could be more than that. I like how it emphasizes institutional buyers, especially like Ohio State, nationwide, maybe Franklin County, the government as well. But the one thing I looked at in a local food action plan was, how does it address farmers? It doesn't really talk about farmers. And I thought, well, would that be addressed under the access provision? Well, it wasn't really. So then I thought, well, maybe it's going to be addressed under the economic section, but it really wasn't. So one of the things I would like the panel to look at is, how are you going to promote more farmers getting into the business? How many acres do you have to grow in order to provide, food for Ohio State University? Ohio State wants to get 40% of its food from the local economy. Well, how much food is that? How many pounds? How many row feet of peppers? How many row feet of tomatoes? How many acres are you going to have to actually put into cultivation? So I'm in favor of this. I've been promoting sustainable agriculture for 20 years, and I think it's great that the city of Columbus is now getting involved with it. It's really cool. But some things I have concerns about are in one of the, and it's 81 pages, by the way. I think you said something like 83 or 84, but I saw the 81 pages. It had a Venn diagram, and it showed how all these issues overlap. But what the panel needs to really think about is the Ohio Department of Agriculture, because they're the ones that are really going to regulate your food, whether you're processing your food, whether it's a retail food establishment. And that's one thing you got to think about is the stuff you want to promote in your plan, is it actually going to be legal for farmers to engage in this kind of activity? The other thing you got to think about is, in Columbus, where do you want your food to come from? You want it to come from Franklin County? Or do you want it to come from out of state or outside of Franklin County? So the other thing you got to think about is, if you really want a local food system, you can do that so that you're not regulated by USDA and FDA. And if you can do it in such a fashion that it's purely intra-state commerce of food, then the only entity you really have to be worried about is the Ohio Department of Agriculture. And I hate to say it, but since we're in Ohio and we're talking about food, the other entity you got to be aware of is the Ohio Farm Bureau. You need to get them involved on this plan as well. But yeah, it's a great plan. This is really exciting that Franklin County and the city of Columbus are getting ahead of the curve. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gary, for coming down and sharing your testimony. And again, even though we know that our plan is online with 89 pages, that this is, that clearly today is really about continuing to get testimony. We're getting the plan, but this is going to be a living document. It isn't a plan that we're just going to say, okay, here's the plan. Now, of course, there's the 40, how many 40 27 items that we are going to implement, but that does not mean that it's going to stop there, because every year there will be a report from this committee back to us as to what's been implemented, as well as thinking about what else needs to be added to the plan for this to move forward. So again, this will be a living document. And our next presenter will be Nancy Day Ackower. Thank you.
The first person's testimony really covered what I was saying, so
All right, ditto for what the other person said. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, all right, I am just, again, very excited about this plan, and say thank you to all the presenters. I'm going to say each person's name that participated, because I absolutely believe we have to say thank you to people that have given 2 years of their lives to this work. So I want to first off acknowledge the co-sponsor of this plan. It's John O'Grady, the president of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. I want to thank Dr. Teresa Long and James Schemmer from Franklin County Economic Development and Planning, the director. Michelle Moskowitz Brown from Local Matters, the executive director. The Local Food Action Project team, Cheryl Graffinino from Columbus Public Health, Barb Seckler, I saw her in the room, from Columbus Public Health, Autumn Trombetta from Columbus Public Health, Matt Brown from the Franklin County Economic Development and Planning, Jonathan Lee, Franklin County Economic Development and Planning, Brian Estabrook from Local Matters, and Noreen Warncock from Local Matters. Hi, Noreen. And then, of course, the working committee, Joe Brown from Columbus City Schools. This shows us just the diversity of individuals that participate in this plan. Jeremy Taylor from Create Columbus Commission, Valerie Hybe from the Finance Plan, Dwight Bauer from the Franklin County Farm Bureau, Amy, who was just here from Franklin County Local Food Council, Amy, and Jenny Pope, Franklin Park Conservatory, Nick Stanich from Franklin Gardens, Michael Jones from Good Food Enterprises, Peggy Murphy from the Greater Columbus Growing Coalition, Ellen Williams from Godman Gill, Ernest Perry, who just spoke, Jill Clark from the John Glenn College of Public Affairs and The Ohio State University, Teresa Coleman Mohammed from the Linden Garden Association, Brian Draper from the Lutheran Social Services, Matt Habish, Mid-Ohio Food Bank, Brian Williams, Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, Ruben Castilla Herrera from the Central Ohio Workers Central Ohio for Fair Food, Randy Sokol from the Ohio Restaurant Association, Bob Lighty from the Parsons Avenue Merchants Association, Kyle O'Keefe from the Solid Waste Authority of Central Ohio, Emily Savers from the Columbus Foundation, Kate Dupe from the Commissary, Mike Hogan, and Dave Saccone from the United Way. So I want to say thank you very, very much for coming, for being a part of this committee. So what happens now from council? So our next step is that I will have a hearing on the 15th. Before I present any legislation to my council colleagues, I have a hearing on all the legislation. So on the 15th, I will hold my bi-weekly legislative hearing, and so we will have a brief discussion of this plan, because the resolution will be ready for my council colleagues. And then on the November the 21st, hopefully my council colleagues will pass a resolution that will formally be adopting this local food action plan that we heard today. And I need to also thank a few other people that, besides the individuals that were on this plan, I need to thank my fellow council members. I'm so thankful that Councilmember Brown was here, and she has another hearing to participate in at 5:30. So I thank her for being here. But I also want to thank City Council staff. I need to thank, Aaron Beck is here from the Legislative Advisor from City Council, Lee Cole, the Director of Communications, my hardworking team, Nicole Harper and Carl Williams, I saw Michael Kessler in the room from who leads our Legislative Research Office. I see Nancy Sully, who is in the room from Council, who works on our community outreach. Again, I said my staff, Nicole Harper, Carl Williams, CTV, who was here. It really requires a lot when we asked them to come outside of council chambers for a hearing, but we thought this was so important to be able to be in the community and be by a wonderful garden. And then, again, I want to thank the residents who allow us to do this work. So I'm very, very pleased to be able to Cheryl will present this work to our body. The team will present this work to our body of council and hope that they will implement this. And then our goal would be to begin the implementation of the plan and keep moving this forward in such a very positive way and provide the resources that are necessary to move this plan forward. We want you to stay engaged. This is not just a city's plan. We will adopt a plan, but we need each and every one of you and those who are listening to this hearing or viewing this hearing, we need them to continue to participate. And so with that, I'm going to say thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And this hearing is adjourned.